Training camp finally here. It's training camp week. It starts at the end of the week, our final edition of our countdown to camp. I'm Phil Milani alongside Andrew Mason and Steve Atwater. One thing left to talk about, one major storyline heading into camp. How are these guys going to replace Aqib Talib?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be difficult. Now, Tramon Brock, who came over from the Minnesota Vikings, didn't play much last year with Minnesota, but prior to that, he was with the San Francisco 49ers and got to see extensive time with the San Francisco 49ers. And his film is very good. You know, I like his film. He looks like he can play. He's very competitive. Now, the question is, will he be able to play to that same level of Aqib Talib? And I don't know many corners in the league that can do that. That's a huge task for him to do, but I'm anxious to see how well he does.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's when the dominoes start falling, of course. Bradley Roby moves up to the #2 corner. I'm confident that he's going to be able to handle the extra workload that he had on top of what he had last year being the #3. I think he'll do fine there, but then the question then becomes the depth, because you have Tramon Brock, but then after that, it gets real young, real fast. Brendan Langley, Marcus Rios, and then Isaac Yiadom, who the Broncos drafted in the 3rd round this year. You know what Tramon Brock can be, and you know what Chris Harris Jr. and Bradley Roby are. But that #4 cornerback, he's probably going to end up playing at some point. Inevitably, there's going to be an injury, and that's where the question marks lie. Because, look, if one of those younger cornerbacks has to go in, especially, let's say there's an injury to Brock, you know that if there's Chris Harris Jr., Bradley Roby, and a young cornerback at #3, that young guy is going to be targeted by an opponent, and how will he respond?
Aqib Talib, during his 4 seasons in Denver, 11 interceptions, 6 of those pick sixes. So he's really turning defense into offense. And guys, you mentioned the young guys. Eventually, one of those guys is going to have to step up, right?
Yeah, somebody's going to have to step up and step up quickly. It was so positive and encouraging to see that Brendan Langley was working out with Chris Harris and Bradley Roby this summer. So he got a chance to kind of see what their mindset is like, you know, how they prepare for the game. And I'm expecting him to come out and put up a good showing here in training camp and push for that third cornerback position.
Yeah, and you go back to 2015, Kayvon Webster was a reliable #4 cornerback who could step in and be the #3. So whether it is Yiadom or Langley or Rios or somebody else like C.J. Smith, perhaps, who the Broncos brought in from Cleveland, one of those guys is going to have to prove that they can handle that role, because inevitably you're going to see one of them play extensively at some point, and an opposing quarterback might target them. They're going to have to produce.
And we know this Broncos defense likes to play a lot of man-to-man. That's how they've made a living the past couple of years. But, Steve, you think maybe they'll switch to some more zone defense?
Well, I'm hoping that they'll sprinkle in a little bit of zone, because their identity is being great man-to-man cover guys. And, you know, I know these guys, you know, that's their bread and butter. But if we can mix in more zone, I think it'll make it a little easier on those guys, and also get an opportunity to get some easy picks.
And that's what you need. I mean, with the man-to-man, it's easy for a quarterback to say, I'm not throwing at Chris, I'm not throwing at Robe. But you throw some zone in, maybe you can sucker the opposing quarterbacks into throwing at those 2 guys who you know can take it to the house.
Absolutely.
If they get a chance.
And the best friend to a good secondary is that pass rush. And then, hey, hopefully Von Miller can get to a quarterback, and that'll help everybody out, the entire defense there. So, all right, it's finally training camp week. At the end of the week, Broncos training camp gets underway. That's going to do it for us. For Steve Atwater, Andrew Mason, I'm Phil Milani.